What is going on, guys? Hope y'all are doing well, and in this video we're going to dive into a new analysis of Shift Technologies. And I want to encourage you that if there is something that I've missed, feel free to mention that in the comments down below. Okay, so right now Shift, which is a used car company, has a market cap under $150 million. And for a company that is estimated to generate revenues over $1 billion, it sounds like this company is undervalued. But I truly believe that we need to look beyond simply just revenues to see if and why this company could be undervalued. Because even if the company generated insane amounts of revenue, but lost all of their cash this year, they would still go bankrupt. So just looking at revenue metrics alone is not a good way of valuing Shift. When we think about the used car companies like Carvana, Vroom, Shift, and CarLotz, we need to understand their weaknesses. And the reality is that this sector has very small margins. So rather than focusing on just revenues, we need to look at gross profits per unit and, most importantly, their path to profitability. For a company like Carvana that has been around for 10 years and is struggling to produce consistent profitable quarters, it begs the question, how are these other companies going to become profitable in the next few years? The truth is that even with enormous revenue numbers, it's not going to solve the issue. So when we look at these companies, the question becomes who is going to come out with a solution that will change the sector. Now, Shift does have some tools that I believe could do just that, but it is not something that will make them profitable in the next year or two. And this is why I truly believe that this is a company that should be a long-term hold if anyone is looking into buying this company. But when we look at Shift Technologies, there are some really great things that I want to point out and some things to pay attention to, especially over the next year. So for starters, they have continued to outperform their own projected revenues and gross profit per unit numbers. Now, as I said before, revenues by themselves don't matter much, but when you add on the GPU, you can begin to see that there is a path to profitability. And in their past earnings call, they released their path to break even, and here's what needs to happen. First, the company would need to sell 100,000 vehicles. Over this past year, they sold a quarter of that, so they definitely have a long way to go. Now, they are projected to sell between 34,000 and 38,000 vehicles, but I can see this company selling closer to 40,000 by the end of 2022. The second piece that needs to happen is the company would need to generate $3 billion in revenue. For this to happen, their focus will have to go beyond just selling cars. It will have to come from their other avenues like financing and insurance, but we will talk more about that later. Third, their adjusted GPU should be between $3,800 and $4,000. Now, Carvana just hit over $4,500 this past year, so it's definitely doable. However, I will say that Carvana did have some help because of the appreciation in vehicles in Q2 and Q3 of last year. But I think if this drastic appreciation didn't happen, they would probably have around $4,000 in GPU. But the question then becomes, how does Shift start producing these numbers? For Shift to get to their projected GPU goal, they would need to improve on their F&I, which is their financing and insurance that I mentioned earlier. If Shift can get to a position where many of their competitors use their platform as a one-stop shop to get their vehicle loans and insurance, they will be in a great position. Now, the hardest part is trying to include captive financing in their platform, but it will be the most rewarding segment when it comes to GPU over time. The problem is that adding this segment is very capital intensive, so the company would need to be in a position where they can implement captive financing while still have enough cash to purchase new vehicles. And that is why I believe Shift possibly adding new shares could be great news for us as shareholders. I was in a similar position with CleanSpark when they were diluting shareholders, and many people were getting upset, but they are now in a position where they could 5x their hash rate in a year. If Shift does dilute shareholders, but it leads them to become profitable a year later from when they did the dilution, isn't that worth it? What happened in 2020 going into 2021, where every stock flew to unreasonably high numbers, made investors very impatient to where they would get upset when a stock didn't move or even fell over a few months. And I'm going to say it straight up, that's not investing, that's trading. But what dilution can do for Shift could change their entire business for the better. And I'm willing to take the hit and wait a little longer before I see some really nice gains over time. Plus, with the new acquisition, they'll have a greater opportunity to introduce more cars to their platform, leading to more brand awareness. Shift, unlike their other competitors, is focused on growing stronger than faster. In other words, they want to focus on their current markets to build their brand and then slowly work their way out. They are currently in 3 of the most populated regions in the US, and there's no telling where this company could go when they get to the East Coast. Plus, using their method, they won't need to advertise as much, which leads to the last piece of their path to profitability. And that is reducing their customer acquisition cost to around $1,000. One of the things that I love about Tesla is that their greatest advertising was the word of mouth. It wasn't these amazing commercials, but it was the product itself. And people wanted to share their experiences. Shift is known for having some of the best customer service in the used car sector. So when you add building a strong foundation in the most populated regions, that sounds like a recipe for a successful company. And as I said in my honest video, which if you haven't watched that, I highly encourage you do. We live in a generation where people are more willing than ever to pay extra money for a better product and experience. So even if Shift's cars sell a little bit more expensive than their competitors, their branding and smooth processes can lead customers to prefer spending more money regardless. Now, the major part to pay attention to is the kind of cars that Shift is selling in comparison to their competitors. The majority of their cars are ages 3 years and older. And when we look at what people tend to buy, it's not 1 to 2 year old vehicles, but it is the exact kind of cars that Shift is selling. Over half of the cars that are being sold are vehicles 6 to 10 years old, and half the cars Shift sells are 8 years old or older. So not only are they in a great position to sell directly to consumers, but they are actually in a better position market-wise than Carvana given the kind of vehicles that they sell. Shift Technologies is a company that I believe can do amazing things and truly shake up this sector because of their consumer focus, low customer acquisition cost, and building relationships locally that will lead to new partnerships down the road with their Fair Technologies asset. And it is because of these things that I am continuing to add to my Shift position. I'm adding when this company is under $2.50 a share. With where this company is at and where they're moving in the next 5 to 10 years, this price is going to look like a complete joke in my opinion. But hey, if there is anything that you would like to add, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. And if you enjoy this kind of content, hit that subscribe button. That way you are notified when new content comes out. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next one.